I love it. Dude, that's so good. That'd be great. Can you imagine the stories he'd be able to tell?
It'd be incredible.
I don't, and not that it was ever an option for me, but I want you guys to know that there's currently that, I don't know, iPhone. Somebody's got a phone commercial right now, and it's all a bunch of Elvis impersonators.
Okay,
I don't know.
I haven't seen it.
It makes me a little sad every time I see it that I'm not in that commercial.
All right, well,
not
Doug,
that I'm
you'd love that.
New
or
career.
have ever been, other than 5th grade, an Elvis impersonator.
Right.
And also,
Every time I see that
we know
commercial,
from
I'm like,
previous.
I get a
Well, you
little
told that
sad.
story.
we know
but
from previous
that was somebody
episodes.
else's
It was
thought about
offered to you.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
saying-
just saying it makes me a little sad that I'm not
just-
in that commercial.
It seems clear that the only place where being an Elvis impersonator can make you real money is the Philippines, according to the stories you've told on this podcast. That every Filipino
You said every
knows and
Filipino
loves.
Yeah,
because
but
Doug
the
is
company
Doug
looking.
does not fucking
Doug
remember
is
at
looking
all.
at you
I'm
like
saying
you
that
are crazy.
No, I'm saying money.
Should I drop in the
No.
previous episode?
No,
where
no,
Doug-
I'm
No, it's
saying
fine.
No, okay.
that. Well, one, money-wise, the Philippines isn't where anybody goes to make money.
That's
other
true.
than cartridges, yes, and
Duarte seems to be
outsourcing.
Well, he's really cleaning it up.
If you
there.
want to kill drug dealers, you probably can make some pretty good money. In
then
Philippines.
don't you think the
and lots of
competition-
other people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He's
but don't you
He's
think
just
the
killing
competition
everybody.
would be really high in the Philippines because
not
so many
if
Filipinos
you're
love
not if you have the
Elvis?
talent level that you do, Doug.
Doug, I think
yeah,
that would
exactly.
make for a great podcast weekly, though, as you talked about how you're struggling to make it as a Elvis impersonator in what might be the hotbed for the world. I mean, they may have Vegas tour.
The resurgence of
But Doug,
Elvis impersonation.
this whole hypothetical began with, we've had such a successful first season that we're able to do this, and that's never going to happen.
It's a shame.
So-
well, I got to tell you though, just so you know, I would also truly, I think, enjoy the Cirque du Soleil thing because
think you would,
as
yeah.
a photojournalist, that would be the dream.
Sure.
No. Here's the thing: we're going to put you in spandex, and you are going to.
Well, you would
no
have to,
one wants that,
You would have
yes.
to do whatever they said. They're like, you're going to be a clown for the next couple of weeks,
Right.
and you're going to be
Right.
working the audience.
That would be
or
awesome.
We're going to teach you how to do trapeze. I mean, let's be honest; those would all be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's all. That's all good.
Doug, I'm thinking of. I want you to have a good time on the third season of Making Doug Listen podcast when you're embedded
wait, here's
in the minor offshoot of Cirque du Soleil in the Philippines.
And if I was a,
It's
I
Elvis
was in-
themed.
I would. Yes.
now you realize if I was in Cirque du Soleil and I was a contortionist, I'd be a Manila folder.
Doug, you.
Oh my fucking god!
Now, while Doug, it's
That
wonderful.
joke's been living in my family since easily elementary school.
It's wonderful wordplay, and no one would question that.
Wonderful.
Doug, you are literally the stiffest man I've ever known. Doug has never been able to. I don't think if you. Doug, do me a favor. Stand up right now, legs
Touch your
straight.
toes.
Try to touch your toes.
Let's see how far you can get.
His. Well, let's see.
Doug is wearing
Yep, legs
activewear.
straight.
Doug has activewear on, so hopefully that will.
I was
going to
say, I don't
No,
know.
Doug, that can't be it. That
No,
can't
this
be
has
it.
been Doug my life.
This is pathetic. Doug is barely past his knees. For
Right.
the listeners at home,
and he's starting to flex his spine, and he still can't get down
he
there.
snapped. He just snapped in half. Everyone at home.
That's where it hurts.
Okay, we have to set him in his chair now.
Yes, thank
Old
you.
man Doug.
If you'd like to see images of Doug standing and trying to touch his toes, you can go to mdltpodcast.com. So, Doug, you found the tonal changes of the show kind of a little distracting or confusing.
little
But what is the show? Okay. So the show, though, continues a long ways beyond those two musical pieces.
long
By the way,
ways.
Brandon, what did you think? Because you know the show well.
Yeah.
And none of these things would be jarring to you.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think? There was a Rance Priebus musical piece.
Yes.
And a Paul Ryan musical
Yeah,
piece.
was there
what
really
did you
a
think
need
of that?
for a second?
I'll be honest,
musical piece?
I did not think so at all. When I heard Ira Glass say, "So we wonder what it would sound like if there was," I went, "No, we don't. I don't need that." But I mean, some listeners may have loved it. I don't know. What did you think, Brandon?
I liked the first song a lot. I did not like the second song. I thought the second song was extraneous.
Right.
But the other thing that's interesting to me, so actually I remember listening to this episode when it came out on the radio.
Okay.
This is actually my second listening to this episode specifically.
all right.
And
lucky.
I really like how poorly it's aged. For any of for you guys, obviously Paul Ryan.
You dum-dums who listen to this show.
Paul Ryan has quit.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Ryan is a fucking quitter.
Yep.
And I really love that they wrote a whole song about what's going to happen to Paul Ryan now in the future. and like what's going to happen with his presidential run when he eventually does run for president. I
Right.
love so much that Paul Ryan went, oh, tax cuts for the rich. I'm fucking out. I've done my job.
Yep.
I'm quitting.
Now, although the song also was a great deal about being abandoned by his own party,
Right.
And if you still need
So maybe
me,
that
I'll
was
be his.
accurate.
I mean, yeah, it's. I think there's a degree of accuracy there.
And Paul Ryan could always come back. He could 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, take
he
a break.
absolutely could.
I mean, Mitt Romney can't be held down. Maybe Paul Ryan is
you may be right.
the Minnesota.
I don't
Where's
actually
Paul Ryan
know.
from? But
You may be right. I'm not sure.
Minnesota seems right.
Okay, you
I'm not
could
sure.
be right.
It doesn't
I
matter.
feel I should know that, but I actually don't know.
We'll find out one day.
Hey, look, he's a quitter. He's
He's a
gone.
fucking quitter. Who
And he
cares?
may not come back, so we may not have to worry about it.
But I thought the first song was actually quite good, and I really like Neil Patrick Harris's voice.
Sure.
And so I actually enjoyed that first song. I didn't need
Okay.
the second song.
Right.
By the way, I thought his vocal performance was great as well. He
Yeah.
sounded great. I'm A, not a fan of musical theater. B, not a fan of that breed of political satire. Again,
Right.
like the capital steps and everything. I think that's something where you're supposed to nudge the person next to you knowingly and go, no, I understand what they're saying, the wordplay there.
Yeah.
And it's just not funny to me. I have no
okay.
time for that. But I thought he sounded great.
Yeah, and I do like the references. I like. There was I can't remember his name. We used to watch him on PBS. He was a piano player who would sing
Yes.
and perform
I know exactly what you're
politically
talking about. I
satire
can't
songs.
think of his name either.
And I always really liked that stuff. And so I think that felt to me like it was in a similar vein. That first song with Neil Patrick Harris. The second one felt, I don't know, just
Right.
extraneous.
And let's be honest, the first song was a little better.
Yeah, it was.
You know, the
This is a better
unexpected, he says, I'm a wussy. I'd like to grab him by the lapels.
Exactly.
And that was clever.
I thought that was a better song.
And again, all kind of winky and knowing, and I'm not into that. But they did a fine job. Now, there's a hell of a lot of episode after that where we really get into, I think, what isn't necessarily being presented as ground zero for this fundamental change, this kind of xenophobic, fear-based change in the Republican Party, but certainly a microcosmic example of,
Right.
well, this is how it happened here, very, very small, one small community in White Cloud, Minnesota, with a substantial number of folks that didn't look like them, didn't share their religion, didn't speak like them, these Somali immigrants who were, seeking refuge in America from, really awful, bloody civil war in their own nation or their nation of origin, and what ended up happening there and how it really went from, gee, these are good people who are just a little concerned to it's kind of naked and outright, we don't want you here ism.
Right, and I think, it definitely seemed like it was a part of that rise of the Tea Party, which they did touch upon. And I do like that the microcosm.
And kind of what we think of now as Trumpist isolationism.
Right.
Mhm.
Isolation.
Xenophobia.
I mean, they focus a lot on the border wall. I just looked it up. Paul Ryan was from Wisconsin.
There you go.
Just because I needed to confirm it.
Sure.
But they focus a lot on the border wall, which is still a hot topic even as of this recording. And so I think that it is interesting, and I actually really like this is when I go to podcasts and listen back to political talk and see how things have changed in America specifically. And I really like that element of this episode and of This American Life as a podcast as a whole, that it does give me a sort of a time capsule, as you said before.
Right.
And it's better than most of the others. I find that I like This American Life the most when it comes to this kind of reporting,
Right.
because I really like, there isn't a whole lot of places you can go to find really good, in-depth, specific reporting from just people. So often it's from pundits or from political leaders
Right.
or from anybody in positions of power. And This American Life is probably the best place, and I think probably one of the reasons why it's so popular, where they just find people and they go, we're going to ask you questions that you may not want to answer, which happens in the podcast.
Sure.
And I don't know how you guys felt about that, if this rings true to you guys.
Doug? Well, this was a very political episode. Do
Yeah,
you
it was.
consider yourself a politically aware person?
I
And
would-
I'm aware that
engaged.
answer may be different now than it was a few years ago. I mean, a lot has happened in the country, and there's probably people today who are more or less politically engaged because of the current presidency.
Right. No, I mean, I think I'm politically aware. I think when, especially with local measures and stuff, I do my own research before I go vote. I do my own research on candidates, and I like to think I make informed decisions
Right.
at the polling place. I'm not politically active.
Right.
I don't.
You're not beating down doors
I'm
or
not,
stuffing
yeah, and
mailboxes
I'm not
or
doing
anything.
rallies. I'm
Not
not
canvassing.
doing anything. I'm not. My support for any candidate is my vote,
Sure.
and
Do you ever politically donate money? You ever given a couple bucks to somebody?
No, I think maybe for like some local measures type thing, but nothing for a candidate.
Right. Okay.
Right. What did you think of we'll say, kind of that last 60% of the episode where basically the structure was, here's a seed, and this is how it grew into what we're now beginning to understand about the party in October of 2016, that it's this very different, that two major players, Paul Ryan and Rance Priebus, are being described, and we see now that he has retired less than 2 years later, are being described as people who, as she says, turned around and their party wasn't there anymore.
Right. Yeah, it was. Well, I did feel like it was a very long segment.
Okay.
I thought it was interesting. I don't enjoy having to listen to hate speech.
Okay.
Even from an information side where, and I think it's important that you.
Right.
you
It's not
do
being
hear it.
advocated for, right?
It's not, but it's still, I already know it exists. I don't need to hear it. I don't know. So that, for me, there was so much of it in there, and I get that this, these people in it, was it White Cloud or St. Cloud, whatever?
Yeah, White Cloud.
That, I get being afraid of, losing your job.
Sure.
I don't.
Sure.
I don't in any way support blaming that on another, group of people,
Right.
per se. But so I don't know. It seemed to go on too long for me to be interesting. Whereas it captured my attention and then it lost my attention.
Right.
I guess is the best way to describe it.
Okay. So, and again, maybe the sin they commit is unintentional in that it's been 2 years since then. Who knows how you would have felt listening to this 2 years ago? Maybe you're like, hey, I know this now. I understand the ascendancy of hate, misogyny, xenophobia, isolationism, because we've been living under a presidency that really is that is their platform, right? Muslim ban, build the wall. These things are all about isolationism and keeping unwanted peoples out. And maybe 2 years ago, perhaps we would have had you would have consumed this with a different feeling.
And been more engaged in it. And I absolutely think that's true. I think I thought that as I was listening to it, that that same question to myself, like I wondered how I would have felt about this, pre-election,
Right.
This stuff that was kind of just emerging to the forefront of the ugly side of America is
Sure.
what I think of it as.
100%.
And that's, for me, that's just hard. I know I need to look at it. I need to be aware of it. I need to stand against it.
Right.
And I think I do all those things, but it truly.
I agree.
It's
It was hard to
look
listen
at.
to a lot of those sequences. I agree.
I also think it's very interesting that you guys started calling it White Cloud because it's St. Cloud.
Oh, it was St. Cloud. Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's what I had.
Then why does one of the individuals say we call it White Cloud? Oh, that was a joke. He was making
it
a
was a
joke
joke.
because he said we call it White Cloud because it's so white. Okay.
Yeah, because
So there you go.
I had St. Cloud.
I'll be honest. I don't know a town White Cloud, but I know St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right.
So-
Yes.
but the other
I
thing
took
that's-
that joke and it became the name in my head.
And I remember when I listened to this episode, it definitely felt like this is the Fringe. And it's the Fringe that's living, far removed from
Are you saying that's what you thought when you
when
heard
I listened
the
to
first
the first time.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah. That it felt like, because, at the time, I remember 578, is that the
news-
speculation
yes.
website? And they were
Right.
saying, 80% likely for Hillary Clinton. And
Absolutely.
everyone would just assume that these are just a small minority of scared people who have, believing whatever they are because they've been drummed up by these belief systems that they had, and we never really gave them legitimacy. And now listening back to it is like, wow, I really wish that we had heard the clarion call to some degree. I am personally
absolutely.
a pretty progressive and liberal person, and so I don't I don't line up to the beliefs that they espouse. There we go. That took me a long time to get there. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
I'm so fired up, John.
I know you get very passionate
Very
about
passionate because I am a political junkie, and so I love to consume anything that is around politics.
And to be fair, though, you also are just a junkie. You have a crippling problem with heroin.
John, it's not crippling because whoa,
You're functional. Yeah, you're doing
I can
okay.
make it work.
You're doing okay. Yeah,
I haven't pooped in a long time.
I know. And your teeth are all gone, but it means you're not having a floss and you're not having a brush.
Here's the thing: you save a lot of money with dentures. A lot of people don't realize
Right.
how cheap it is to have dentures.